Hi, welcome to Beyond the Fundamentals, Grow and Relate. On this channel, we talk about growth and relationships, growth and transformation and relationships with the goal of trying to help you become a better person with a goal in mind. Today, we're talking about meditation, and I want to introduce you to some ideas about meditation for beginners, because when I started meditating, I didn't know where to find information. I hear people mentioning meditation all the time, but where should I start? What should I do? What are the different kinds? How should I start? So I'm going to recommend 10 different things for you to try, and one of them is the main one. Okay, the first one we're going to talk about is the main one that I really want you to focus on, and then we can work the other ones in. Now, it's really important. We come from a Christian background on this channel, but we accept people from any background that you want to be on. I think these practices are going to work for you. In Christianity, we have this problem where we have all these beliefs and all these affirmations and things that we're supposed to think are true. But then we have all these things, but we wind up going around being jerks to people. Okay, we're pretty bad about being jerks. Now, we don't want to be. We teach people that they shouldn't. We teach people that we should love others and that we should have the fruit of the Spirit and all that. But the fact is that we don't. And the reason we don't is because we don't integrate the beliefs into our body. Okay? We don't integrate them into our body. You can think of your body as a piece of hardware that it takes about 2 months for new software to be installed into. And we don't think that way. Over in the West, here in America, in the United States, we have this attitude in our education system and in our churches that we just convey information to you. And once I have it in my head and once I can pass a test, then I'm good. I can get my degree. I can get my diploma. Now, I know that there are degree paths where you have to do a practicum and all that kind of stuff. But you understand the concept. This is really bad in churches where we send people off to seminary and they take all this academic information, we put information in their head, but they never really transform into a sage. They become the same brat that they always were. Now they have a whole bunch more information to be a brat with. That's really what we've been producing in American churchianity, especially in fundamentalism in the West. So it's very important that the practices that we do here are more important than the beliefs, because you can't get the beliefs to stick without the practices. That's why it's so important, because the beliefs really don't matter if you can't make them an integral part of yourself. In the West, we ask people, what are your beliefs? What do you believe? Where's your statement of faith? Where's your list of beliefs? Over in the East, they ask people, what is your practice? Because the practices is what makes you better. It's Larry Bird shooting 500 free throws every morning before school that made him a better basketball player, not his beliefs about the basketball or the basketball court or the rim or any of that stuff. You understand? It's practices that make us better. So how do you practice? Our thing that we have in our mind, and this is another thing that I want to tell you, like your mind, you have to start thinking of your mind kind of like a muscle, okay, that you have to exercise and work out. And this is not optional. As you start to get older, some of us are middle-aged now, some of us are a little older than that, you realize that taking care of your health, exercising and eating right really isn't an option. At some point, you can kind of get away with eating whatever you want, maybe when you're 12, and then the older you get, the more it matters. Well, these kinds of things with the mind, they really matter, and you can't not do it, right? Now, when it comes to meditation, I guess I'm not sure if I want to say this. Yeah, I'll say this probably under number 2. But there's really no choice. So there's no better time to start than now. So Kevin, how do I start some practices where I can start to walk in the way that is Christ? And of those practices, you're going to commit your mind to being shaped in a particular way. Now, number 1, the first thing that we're going to talk about is meditation. Now, don't get hung up on my terminology, because everyone who talks about this kind of stuff kind of has their own terminology. I'm going to tell you what I use, and I kind of follow probably a little close to what John Vervaeke would follow, okay? So when I say meditation, what I'm talking about is stopping all your thoughts, having a still mind. The Bible says, be still and know that I am God, having a still mind. Now, the reason that we want to do this is basically to learn how to control our mind. We want to budget our mind. We want to be able to budget our mind and what it does, just like you go to the gym and learn to build up your muscles so that you can tell them what to do. Now, in the rest of our lives, we budget our time, we budget our money, and we tell our time what to do. We tell our money what to do, but our minds, it has this what's called monkey mind. It's always thinking these intrusive thoughts, and sometimes intrusive thoughts can be quite disturbing. And if you just sit anywhere for just a minute, your mind's just going crazy with all sorts of different thoughts. And even you might find yourself in a meeting at work where they're supposed to be talking about, I don't know, the reports that are due this Friday or whatever, and they're looking at charts and graphs, and you're thinking about the laundry that has to be done, and Jimmy broke his leg at school, and how's that going to work with the crutches, and when's he going to be able to play his sport again? You got all these things going through your head, right? So the main goal that you're aiming for is to simply clear your mind. Now, a lot of Christians are afraid of that phrasing because they think that you're going to clear your mind to let all the demons in. People are very superstitious these days, and don't think of it that way at all. When I say clear your mind, thinking of it like holding a plank when you're planking to work out your abs, or when you do a flexed arm hang. Think of it like an exercise. We're clearing our mind for the sake of learning how to control our own mind and stop the monkey mind. Now, I'm not going to get into any one of these techniques very much in depth, but I'm just going to briefly tell you what each one of them is, because I kind of want this to be a fast video so you can get started now, okay? But you want to be easy on yourself. You're going to have intrusive thoughts. Don't be too hard on yourself. Just kind of gently push them away, kind of like you would redirect a puppy or something like that. Be kind to yourself. And you want to meditate clearing your mind for as long as you can. And what I mean by that is don't tyrannize yourself. Don't say, we're going to meditate for 3 hours today. We're going to meditate. All right. I very much believe in this, but sometimes I can't do more than 20 minutes. Okay. And sometimes I'll do 30 minutes, that sort of thing. If I know that I'm not disciplined enough to try to keep my mind clear for longer than 20 minutes, maybe aim for 21 next time, something like that. But don't try to overdo it. It's okay if you just start with a minute and 12 breaths. Okay. It's okay to start anywhere. And there's no brownie points for doing it any longer. There's just like an exercise. There's benefits for how long this can be done. Now, I want to caution you against having any kind of lofty goals with this. And here's what I mean. It is possible, if you pursue this kind of meditation where you clear your mind, that you can achieve things like enlightenment or a pure consciousness event, or there's lots of things that can happen. You can have a unitive awareness experience through meditation like this. But if you have those things in mind as a goal, they're less likely to happen. So don't set that lofty of a goal. Just set a simple goal. It's kind of like have you ever noticed that when you start to notice that you're dreaming, like you're really trying to go to sleep, and as soon as you notice that you're dreaming, you're like, oh, I'm finally falling asleep, and then bam, that wakes you up, okay? Same kind of thing happens. Or maybe you're getting into a flow state in a sport that you're playing, but then as soon as you recognize, man, I'm hitting all these three-pointers, I must be in a flow state, and then you start missing them. You just kind of mess yourself up. The same kind of thing happens with this. If you have too lofty of a goal, when you start to get the sensation that maybe it is coming around, you mess it up. So don't have that lofty of a goal. Don't even worry about that. That will come when it comes. Some things happen of themselves, and that's fine. Don't have that lofty of a goal. Just have the goal in mind to learn how to control your mind and control your thoughts. And what you will find is that your focus and your ability to pay attention and your ability to direct your mind toward things that you want to direct it to will dramatically increase over time. Dramatically increase over time. Now, you may not notice, but some of your friends and family may be like, you're a little different. You're a little more focused than I thought you were before. So you'll notice that sort of thing to happen. So that's number one. And this is number one, and it's the most important one. If you don't do any of the other ones, do that one. Okay, if you're not going to do any of the other ones, do that one. And the reason is because that one enables the other ones that we're going to talk about. The other 9, I have 10 of these that we're going to talk about. The other 9, that one enables those to happen more sharply, better, more focused, more effective. So that's probably the most important one. The next one is what I'm going to call, number 2, is what I'm going to call contemplation. And contemplation is where you are intentionally going to think about one thing. You're going to think about one thing. Now, you say, Kevin, what am I going to think about? That's where you come in. You think about what you want to think about. Whatever it is that you think future you needs to be able to think about well, that's what you think about. Now, most often when it comes to growth and transformation, we might use contemplation when we're trying to integrate a new worldview. When we've had a paradigm shift, we see things a different way. Maybe we're going from the ceramic view of the universe to the dramatic view of the universe, and it's not intuitive to you yet. So I'm going to commit that new worldview to contemplation. I'm going to sit and I'm going to think about all the facets of it. And maybe I will maybe I'll watch a video on that for 10 to 15 minutes. And then I will sit and think about all those facets for 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. Now, when you are trying to incorporate a new way of thinking, there's other things to do too. Like maybe you're trying to incorporate a new worldview, or maybe it's something smaller. Maybe there's a phrase that your spouse says that makes you angry. And so maybe you're just going to contemplate hearing that phrase and not getting angry about it, and not just not reacting, but actually not feeling the anger on the inside. Okay. Now, Caroline Leaf, her methodology suggests, and she has a little 5-step program that I recommend you do in conjunction with contemplation meditation. And she says that it takes, the research shows, according to her, that it takes about 63 days for your brain to be rewired, to think a new way. And that is making new neural pathways, taking advantage of neuroplasticity that is available to anyone no matter how old you are. You have the capacity for neuroplasticity. Now you need to take care of yourself. You need to not make yourself insulin resistant. Don't eat too many sugars. Maybe go into ketosis every once in a while. There's some things that you can do with your body that also help with this, which I recommend you look up and learn about. Okay. Those things are helpful as well for your brain health. But your body has to be trained like an animal or programmed like a computer, if you will. But it takes your body about 63 days, about 2 months, give or take, to learn something new, to be trained. So one of our problems in American churchianity is we get the information up here. We'll learn something like God is a hypostatic union, and we just think this information is valuable just because we can repeat it back. But the real value in new insights and new worldviews and new ways of seeing things, they have to be instilled on purpose, and your body has to be trained to think in the new way, has to be trained to operate in a new way. And this is very important for couples if you're having trouble arguing and bickering with one another and you're having dysfunctional interactions with each other. You can use this method of contemplation to train your body to react to different ways, to different stimuli that come from your partner and from your internal thoughts as well. So that's very important. You have to think of your body. People think that they can change their mind and their actions and behaviors like a speedboat. It doesn't work that way. People say you can create a habit in 21 days. It's really, the science shows it's actually about 63. Your body's not a speedboat. Your brain is a speedboat, but your body brain, like we've called it in other videos, your body brain is more like a barge, and that barge is floating down the river. And the only thing you have to turn the barge or to shift it are like a million little tadpoles, okay? So no one little thing is really going to make a big difference in that barge, but over and over and over again, in persistence, you will get the barge of your body to move in the direction you need it to move in. But you have to understand how slow your body responds to new things. Takes about 63 days. It's a barge. Takes it a while to turn around or to shift course. You have to have grace with yourself when it comes to that, and have grace with the people in your lives when it comes to that. One of the signs that you know something has been integrated into the way you think is if you have a dream and that way of thinking is your default mode of thinking, and you don't have to do it on purpose, but it's just the way you see things in a dream. That is a good giveaway. It's also a good giveaway if you're trying to shift the way you're thinking, and when you dream, your default mode of thinking is the old way. That's a good way that's an indicator that the change hasn't taken place yet and that some work still needs to be done. Okay. I had a unitive awareness experience back in 2019, and then I had a series of them, and I'm recording this now in February 2025. So it's been a few years, and I've had a few unitive awareness experiences since then. And I feel like I can incorporate unitive awareness into how I operate in different modes with different people and at different times. However, sometimes when I have dreams, I still have a dualistic mindset in the dream. So I'm not fully migrated yet. So I still have some work to do. So pay attention to your dreams. They can tell you something. So that's number 2, contemplation, when you think about something on purpose because you're trying to shift your mind to it. The number 3 thing, and you can do that for however long you want to. Try it for 5 minutes or for 10 minutes, but you want to do that every day for at least 63 days. You want to read Caroline Leaf's book, Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess. Use her little 5-step methodology. You can actually look that up online, and there's an app for that too. Do that for 7 to 10 minutes a day, I think it is, for her methodology, and use contemplation. And you can really shift. Do that for a year on multiple different things where you're trying to change your thinking and really make a difference in who you are, doing, being, and becoming. Okay. The third thing I want to talk about is phenomenal sensory awareness meditation. Okay. And it may sound like a bunch of fancy words, but just think of your senses, your 5 senses. What are my senses aware of? So you might want to go sit outside. Maybe you're going to lay in the sand on the beach, or you're going to lay in the sand on the beach where the tide is just barely coming up to hit your body a little bit. Okay. Or hit your feet, something like that. Maybe sit somewhere where you can hear the birds chirping, stuff like that. And what you're going to meditate on, start either at the top of your body or at the bottom of your body, like your toes, and you work your way up very slowly. What do I feel on my toes? Do I feel the sand? Do I feel the breeze? Do I feel my pant leg touching me? What do I feel? I'm sitting in the sand, or maybe I'm kneeling in the sand. And so you work your way all the way up to everything you feel, from the breezes and the birds you hear and the people you hear talking. You just become very aware of everything around you. Now, ultimately, over time, this is very important when we get to the last one, because over time, you want to retrain your intuitions to create a worldview that is based on experience and works its way up. When I say experience, I mean literal experience with what you hear, taste, see, touch, smell, all your sensory experience. You want to build your worldview up with things that align with that. And that's very, very important. So you want to get used to that, and you want to meditate like this on a regular basis. Doesn't necessarily have to be every day, but a few times a week would be really good. Or maybe you just go sit in your yard. Maybe you go sit outside. You can sit in a quiet room and do this too, but a little sensory stimuli might be useful to make this more effective. And you're concentrating on your breath as well, that sort of thing. Now, that's number 3, and I'll talk more about that when we get to number 10, but that's important. Now, the 4th one is a somatic awareness meditation. And so in number 3, the phenomenal sensory awareness, you're aware of everything outside your body. And this one, you're going to be aware of everything inside your body, okay? And you're going to take stock and take inventory very slowly. And guided meditations can help with this too, and that is another one of these. Guided meditations can help you, or you can, after a few guided meditations, you can do this on your own, where you just basically take stock of your entire body and you think about how you feel in your body from your toes all the way up to your head. And you might do something, or from your head down to your toes, and you might do something like learn to relax certain muscle groups as you bring your awareness and focus to those muscle groups. Then you might think of where you're feeling anxiety in your body, or fear, or pain, or sadness, or something like that. Whatever it is, and it could be mixed with emotions. It could just be tension, like I feel a tension here, but what is it? Is it sadness? Is it anxiety? Is it stress? Is it nerves? I don't know. And maybe you don't know, but you just take stock, and you're doing this quietly as you go. Just take stock of your body. So do a somatic awareness. A lot of times you'll hear mindfulness meditation, and in these therapists, they'll just throw out words like mindfulness, and I don't know if it means anything to anybody, but it's bringing awareness to everything that's going on in your body. And this is very helpful as you get better at this, because you will find yourself in a conversation, maybe with your spouse, maybe somebody else, especially if they say something that bruises your ego or might make you upset and you want to get defensive. Instead of immediately reacting, you will find yourself bringing the skills that you learn in this meditation to say, oh, when she says this to me, it makes me feel angry and defensive, and I feel this in my body right here. And now you can do something about that rather than just react out of anger as well. Okay? It's very helpful in a practical sense for how aware you are what's going on in your body and what signals you're getting from your body. So every time you hear information from somebody, you're getting multiple signals. So if your wife is talking to you, you're hearing the words she's using, you're seeing the gestures and the facial expressions and the body language that she's using, and those things are hitting you in your body in a particular way, and your body is reading all of that whether you want it to or not. And so it is a skill to develop, to learn how to listen to that secondary signal that comes from your body reacting to the communication you just got, all the verbal stuff, the nonverbal stuff, the gestures, the facial expressions and body language. Your body's better at reading that than you realize, and you can learn how to interpret that signal and bring it along with the semantic signal that she's conveying as well, and learn how to bring them all together and get a unified package of information before you think about responding to it. And I think you'll find that to be very helpful and useful. So meditating on those kinds of things, a somatic awareness on your own, will be very beneficial in your interactions. So that's number 4. Number 5 is what we're going to call the zoom in, zoom out meditation. And this can be done in space and in time. And I'll give you an example of how you do it in space. You might just meditate on where you are. I'm sitting here, I'm on this square of the sidewalk, and this sidewalk, if I zoom out, I'm in my yard. If I zoom out, I'm in my whole property and I see my whole house. If I zoom out, I see all the houses on my street. If I zoom out, I see all the houses in my neighborhood. Now, each layer of this, you're going to sit and breathe for about 10 to 15 to 30 seconds and let it sink in. Let that viewpoint from that ratio sink in. And if I zoom out, I can see my town. And if I zoom out, I can see my county. If I zoom out, I can see my state, and then the United States, and then the Northern Hemisphere, the Southern Hemisphere, the Western Hemisphere, the Eastern Hemisphere. I can see the solar system. I can see my planet. I can see the galaxy. I can see the universe, okay? And then as far out as you're comfortable going, and then zoom back in. And then do the same thing every layer, come back in. And what that's going to do, it's going to raise your level of awareness of your ratio to everything else that exists in the space in which you live. And you'll find that is going to very much inform and influence and give you wisdom in how you address and assess problems and interactions in ways that you wouldn't predict. And another way you could do this is with time. So space and time. Think about, okay, I am right now here on February 28th, 2025, and you can go backwards, what was going on last year? What about the last election cycle? What about everything since the year 2000? What's been going on here in this town? And you can mix these. What's been going on in the world? What does American history look like? All the way back to, when the Mayflower came over here. Or Christopher Columbus. So you start backing up and start thinking of things and back up as far as your understanding of written history can take you, and then come back in, and then do the meditation where you do the same thing into the front. Speculate into the future about what the future may or may not look like. Speculate. Now, this is a meditative practice. Of course, you don't know what the future looks like, but you will find as you contemplate the past and you bring intentionality to the future, you will find that this brings results, and that you will find that you will have an increased capacity for predictiveness and correlation awareness. All kinds of things will come to realization. So that's number 5. I want to pause right here to let you know that if you like what you're getting here, you can support this channel. You can go to beyondthefundamentals.com, click on the donate tab, and there are 5 different electronic ways to donate there if you want to see more content like this. It takes a lot of time, space, resources, money, and energy to develop this content, and the more supporters we have from people like you, and also send me a little note to let me know, hey, I supported the channel And this is the kind of content I'm really interested in, the relationship stuff. I'm really interested in the growth stuff. Let me know what you're interested in. Let me know why you donated. Okay. And then the more the merrier. So if you want to do that, there's a little plug. And also soon we're going to be starting a members community, or some kind of community of people who are interested in this kind of stuff, to where we can all get together and chat together. I'm not sure what that's going to look like yet, but stay tuned. So that's coming soon also. So thanks for everybody who's willing to support this, and for everybody who sends feedback that you're getting something positive out of these videos. That's very helpful. Now, so we just covered number 5. Now I want to go into number 6, and it's simply guided meditations. Guided meditations of any kind. We've done a few on our channel, on our FSI group, on the other channel for Beyond the Fundamentals. We've done guided meditations in that group every once in a while. We'll do them. We don't do them all the time. And with our Beatitudes series, we did some guided meditations. Now, guided meditations of any kind, personally, I don't like them when their voice is too soft and weak sounding. You know, I like them to be a little more intentional with the way they talk. That's just me, though, okay? But there's some guided meditations. I think Vishrant has one or two, or maybe has a lot out there. I've had people live. I've paid people to take me through guided meditations with specific things in mind, okay? And we're not going to get into that here, but basically any kind of guided meditation can be useful, can be helpful. So maybe look up a few of those. There's some people on, there's people doing them on Instagram videos even, okay? And some of them are pretty good. So try guided meditations. Usually what they're doing is they're walking you through your body, and they're helping you relieve stress, things like that. Those can be helpful, and you can mix guided meditations. Guided meditations can also be any other kind of meditation, probably except for the clear your mind meditation. Although there can be some of that too, where they tell you to let go and clear your mind, that sort of stuff. Now that's number 6, guided meditations. Find some that you like, do those. Number 7 is ego meditations. Okay. And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to figure out what all your egoic identity attachments are and let go of them. Realize that what you are not. There are meditations for this where you realize all the things that you aren't, because all the things that you think you are, when I ask you who you are, you're probably going to give me your name. And then when I ask you who you are, and I'm like, no, don't give me your name. Tell me who you are. Then you might tell me what you do, or you might tell me who you were born to or where you lived. You're going to tell me something about your story. You see, the thing is, you're not your story. You're not what you do. You're not your job. You're not your marriage. You're not your political affiliation. You're not your political party. Okay, because you were you before you were a Republican or a Democrat. You were you before you were a Baptist. You were you before you got that job. You see, there's a continuity of you that is not dependent on all these things that may or may not change. And I'm not just talking about your physical embodiment presence, like this body that you're in, or your biology. Okay, who's the witness in there? Who's the one that's aware? When you have thoughts, you hear those thoughts. Who's the one listening to those thoughts that hears them? Who is that? And so you're not your skill sets. You're not your preferences. Those things aren't you. So you can do meditations to learn to separate yourself emotionally from the things that aren't you. And this can be very helpful, because if you don't do this on purpose, then tragedy is going to do this for you. If, we all say God has a purpose for our life. We should see the videos on our location of where is God, Christ in you, the hope of glory. We're not talking about Hebraic Megazeus around here. Santa Claus, Sky Daddy, we don't do that around here, okay? We don't like to model God around here. But when it comes to these issues of having a purpose for your life and all this kind of stuff, if you are destined, if you want to think of it that way, to become aware or awakened or enlightened, those are Bible words, by the way, for those of you who are stage 3 out there. If you really want to do that, but you're not doing the ego work yourself, then what reality will bring your way is tragedy, because tragedy will separate you from your egoic attachments. Okay? Being a husband is not who you are. Being a wife is not who you are. Being a father or a mother is not who you are. And you don't want tragedy to have to teach you those things. Do you see where I'm going? You want to learn these things your own, and it takes time. So start doing the work. Start doing the ego meditations. Number 8 is what we're going to call shadow meditations. And your shadow is what's been defined as basically all the things that are going on in your mind that you would do that you don't know are there. You don't like them. You don't want to know them. And you call this part of your subconscious, things that are part of you that you are unaware of, okay? Like you might think of yourself as a nice, responsible, law-abiding citizen, but there is a part of you deep down that, given the right circumstances, will commit murder. I mean, just absolute first-degree terrible murder. There's part of you that will do that, okay? And what you want to do, one of the ways you can find out what your shadow is to pay attention to your dreams. If you ever have a dream where you're doing something in your dream that you would never be caught doing, you don't think you would ever be caught doing out in your real life, that's probably part of your shadow. Another way you can detect your shadow is things you don't like in other people. I can't stand the way she does this or the way they do this. You're probably projecting things about your own subconscious, negative qualities that deep down you know about yourself but aren't willing to admit, and you're projecting them onto other people. So pay attention to those things. Now, this video isn't about what the shadow is, okay? And we can do some of those, but this video is just about that doing shadow work in meditation is very, very important. And shadow isn't necessarily always bad. It's sometimes, like for some people, there are good things hidden in their subconscious. Think about what you would be willing to tell your best 3 friends about yourself, and then think about what you'd be willing to say to a public, like say you're speaking in church or at your company picnic or something like that. What would you be willing to say about yourself, and what would you really not want to be said about yourself? Okay? So there's different ways to discover what the shadow is, but what you want to do is you want to discover what the shadow is, and then you want to spend some time in meditation, and there are other practices where you integrate the shadow into who you are. We don't find out that we would do this horrible thing and then try to pretend it's not there, which is one of the faults, what's one of the flaws of fundamentalist American churchianity, is it tries to identify the shadow and just dismiss it and get rid of it and shun it and push it off, that sort of thing. We don't want to do that. That actually creates a bigger problem. We need to admit what we are, who we are, what's deep down in there, and we need to integrate it into who we are, meaning we just admit that it's there. And if a home invader ever ever comes to my house, maybe the part of me that will commit murder needs to come out and fight that guy. You see, something like that. So you never know when you're going to need to be able to call on parts of yourself that you don't like, and you don't want those parts of yourself to be a toddler when they come out on their own. So you want to integrate them as early as you can, and you want to mature them and age them along with you. So do some shadow meditations, do some shadow work. That's number 8. Number 9 is what we're going to call the circumference of yourself. Do meditations on the circumference of yourself. You say, what do you mean, the circumference of myself? My waist is too big and I'm trying to lose some weight to get my pant size down, okay? That's not really what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the conception of yourself. I'm not talking about your physical size. And the example that I want to use is there's these wise people who talk about when you put a teaspoon of salt into a cup of water, it makes the whole thing salty and bitter, and you don't want to drink it. And it makes you bitter, it makes you salty, right? But if you take a teaspoon of salt and you put it into a pond of water, you can't even notice because it's so far dispersed out there. And the moral of that story is, be the pond. When an agitation comes your way, don't let a teaspoon of salt make you salty. That means you're small, okay? You're small. You be the pond. Do the zoom in, zoom out meditation. Recognize how big you are and have a bigger view of yourself so that when somebody pours salt in your wound, you're the pond. It doesn't really influence you or affect you at all. So the circumference of self meditation is another one to do, and it's helpful if you've had some kind of unitive awareness experience that really helps that view to sink in, but not everybody has had that, and that's okay. Now, there's one that I haven't talked about, which is loving kindness meditation. And there's a book on loving kindness meditation. I guess so I guess there's 11 that I'm going to talk about, and it's basically where it's very important that you do it like Jesus said to do it, is where Jesus said, love your enemies. When we think of love in relationships. But that's not how the Bible portrays love. Jesus said, love your enemies. You're not in relationships with your enemies, okay? You can have relationships without love, and you can have love without relationships. And in loving kindness meditations, I would advise you to go download that book and listen to it and do those meditative practices to do basically what Jesus said, and actually intentionally send love consciously toward the people that you want to hate, toward the people that have caused you failure, betrayal, and injustice. Those people that you're absolutely justified in hating, and they are legitimately malicious and evil, and you can prove it. Love them anyway. Those are the ones Jesus said to love. I personally think that loving kindness meditation is kind of the formula or a prescription to bring a person to awakening or a unitive awareness. That's how I got there. But that's how I got there. I don't know if it's the same for everybody or if it'll be different for other people, but I had my unitive awareness experiences when I was doing meditations that helped me actually practice what Jesus said when he said, love your enemies. And the people that are trying to persecute you and the people that are trying to persecute your kids and all that, love them anyway. And that's when I had my unitive awareness experiences. And so I would suggest that you try that as well. So a loving kindness meditation going out to others, I think that can be very beneficial. Now the last one I want to talk about, and I guess this is number 11 because I only had 10 on here to start with, and I don't want to inundate you with so many things, but some of these go together, is sacred meditation. And what is sacred meditation? Now, a lot of you who are superstitiously stage 3 religious Christian kind, you're going to be upset with me that I didn't lead with this one. Shouldn't you put this first? Shouldn't you put God first and everything? And the reason is because of that, right? The reason is absolutely because, remember number 2, the contemplation, where you're trying to integrate a new worldview? If you do scriptural meditation, which is good, I advocate scriptural meditation, but if you do it through an old lens, through an old worldview that isn't serving you well, and you haven't learned to love your enemies, and you haven't learned to see yourself as bigger, and you haven't learned to zoom in and zoom out, and you don't have somatic awareness, and you haven't really adopted the different worldview that is more realistic, all you're doing is you're reinforcing old ways of thinking. Okay? Now, as much as Christians say you need to read your Bible, you need to go to church, and you need to be around other believers, when you're going through a phase shift transition, when you're leaving stage 3 and you're trying to get through stage 4 so you can be at stage 5, you can see our video on how I assess people's growth, where we use Fowler's growth model and spiral dynamics and those sorts of things. If somebody is in that phase, there are lots of things in the Bible that they've been reading for years and years and years and years that tether their thought inertia back to the old way of thinking, okay? And so we need to untether that inertia, and if you keep trying to have, some people, they'll leave a church because they got kicked out or something, or the Calvinists kicked them out, all kinds of stuff happening like that, and then they keep trying to have home church, right? And they keep reading their Bible and doing daily devotions and praying the way they were. Well, what they're doing is they're staying tethered to the old way of thinking. They've been given this gift of this open door for transformation and to be opened up to a new way of doing things, new way of thinking, a brand new chance for transformation to become this new person, but they're persisting in the old thing. Okay? They're persistent, and so the new wine will not go into old wine bottles. So do not be upset with me when I tell you that it might be the best thing for you to take a break from the Bible for a while. Take a break from church as you know it for a while. Take a break from those things altogether. And then when you come back, you'll notice, wow, I see these things very differently and very much better, much more useful. And if you had stuck with it the whole time, that wouldn't have happened. Okay? And don't worry, you're not backsliding. The demons aren't getting you. It's not like that. It's just how the mind works, and it needs to happen to you somewhere between the ages of 25 and 40. It needs to happen. Okay? So don't be afraid of that. Don't be worried about that. So sacred meditations can be very, very good if you can do those in a sense of, if you can listen to the Bible or a Bible verse or listen to it being talked about in a meditative way and not in a way where you think you need to gather all these dogmatic conclusions that are drawn from the correct interpretation of Scripture that have to be lifted up as doctrine that we must follow, and we have to affirm them so that we can demonstrate that we are orthodox and in the right in-group. If you think of it that way, do not do these at all. That's going to be very bad for you. It's not going to be good for you at all. All that's happened there is the world's left hemispheric reductionistic, materialistic, reductionistic way has co-opted holy scriptural, spiritual concepts to tether you to its way of doing things. And you are like the world whether you realize it or not. So you have to, because it's used the Bible and biblical concepts and the concept of mammon church to get you to be like it, but with different content, you have to break away from all of it altogether. And then be reintroduced again like you've been, say, born again. It's almost, and don't take that as the way you've always thought of it. Think of it as getting a fresh start, which I think is what Jesus really had in mind, and Peter really had in mind when they used the phrase. They're not talking about some moment in time where you went down an aisle and said a prayer and you trusted Jesus. Not like that. It's where you really do midwife the Christ in you to come out of you. And during that phase, it's a fragile time period, just like real birth. It's a fragile time period, and it could last a while. So once that transition has occurred, and you have taken down, we have other videos about religious projection, religious romantic projection. I can't remember if they're on this channel yet or not, but I'll make sure it gets on this channel. Where when the religious romantic projection has been taken down, now you're ready to move into sacred meditations where you're meditating on Scripture. Because if you haven't shifted to second half of life wisdom yet, or second tier consciousness yet, that can do more harm than good. So I would caution about that. So the 10 things we looked at: meditation, control your mind, make your mind still. Contemplation, think about something on purpose to shift your mind to it. Phenomenal sensory awareness meditation, what's your body feeling that's outside itself. Somatic awareness meditation, what's your body feeling that's inside itself. Zoom in, zoom out in time and space. Number 6 is guided meditations. Number 7 is ego meditations. Number 8 is shadow meditations. Number 9 is circumference of the self. Be the pond, not the cup of water when the salt gets poured in. And then number 10, we talked about loving kindness meditation, where Jesus says, love your enemies. Have a meditation where you do that on purpose. And then sacred, number 11, sacred meditations, where you meditate on something like Scripture, okay? So I hope you find this information to be helpful. If you're just getting started with meditation, those are the things that I would start. And I would, if you only have time for one, and there are other things too, but let's just start simple. There are other things too, but if you only have time for one, start with the meditation where you learn to control your mind and keep your mind still. Learn to do that one, because the more you can do that one, the more you can do really anything else. Okay? It's a real game changer, that one. So I highly recommend that. All right. Thanks for watching. May the Lord bless you. Have a good day.